earlier today. He said, when things looked bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held the line for the nation on July 3rd, 1863, and I think we may be in that moment now. Can you comment on his rhetoric and Mayor Jacob Frey and whether they want to see unrest in Minneapolis?
Well, that's very tough rhetoric from a guy who just quit because his fraudulent activities have been uncovered. Look, Tim Walz is a joke. His entire administration has been a joke. The idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe, in fact, has participated in fraud. That's what this new Assistant Attorney General position is going to find out. I don't care what Tim Walz says. I care about getting to the bottom of this fraud for the American people, and I care about enforcing the nation's immigration laws. That's what we're going to stay focused on.
Order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner.
But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement, but why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
I'm glad you talked about this standoff here because Governor Tim Walz, and we know him from that Kamala Harris-Tim Walz campaign, he is really trying to turn this into a standoff with the feds. Have a listen to this.
Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary.
But not only that, Mick, he's also trying to turn this possibly into a national movement. Here's what else he had to say.
If you're in Portland or you're in LA or you're in Chicago or you're wherever they're coming next, stand with us. Stand with us against this.
Look, Mick, this starts to sound, I hate to say it, but a little bit insurrectionary here.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of variables here, a lot of different dynamics at play. Keep in mind, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota and the former Democrat nominee for vice president, just announced this week that he will no longer be standing for re-election for governor of Minnesota because of a scandal involving federal fraud in his state to the tunes of billions of dollars. That's hard to imagine, a governor not running for re-election because of a fraud scandal. That's just how large that particular issue is. And you cannot help but wonder whether or not Governor Walz is trying to figure out a way to sort of salvage his reputation. You leave the office under the cloud of scandal. What a great way for a progressive Democrat to try and salvage his reputation, but pick a fight with Donald Trump. So there's a lot of other sort of dynamics at play here. Again, that adds to all of the volatility.
Well, yeah, and including that volatility, too, I'm seeing reports that there are now organized protest movements. Antifa may be involved in trying to start some protest actions in Minnesota. It feels like in possibly trying to distract from his own political troubles and the Democrats' own political troubles, he is really playing with fire here.
He is calling up the National Guard. If he were to do that, again, he's not done it yet. I don't remember that happening in my adult lifetime, in my lifetime, where the federal government wants to do one thing and the governor wants to do the exact opposite. And in order to counterbalance that, brings up the state National Guard. I'm not sure how that even plays out, James. I mean, will the National Guard prevent the federal ICE agents from doing their job? Keep in mind, the federal ICE agents are there to enforce the immigrations and customs rules. That's what ICE stands for, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, so that they're enforcing federal law. And I don't remember a time in my lifetime when the state guard might be called up to prevent federal agents from enforcing federal law. It's very much sort of a new frontier here because we don't really know how to deal with this. And I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that things are able to calm down over the next couple of days. The DHS Secretary Kristi Noem gave what I thought was a really good press conference today. Her tone was calm and measured. And I think that's exactly what is called for right now. I think the last thing we need is folks looking to escalate this situation.
Well, on that question of escalation, where do you think this is going to go with the White House? Because I'm sure, Donald Trump, who's had a pretty good week here with the capture of Nicolas Maduro, with the seizure of that Russian tanker successfully, he's been looking pretty good. He's had quite a number of wins here, but this could throw him off track. Having worked for him, where do you think he is going to take this? Is he going to be up for taking up a fight with Tim Walz and escalating it further?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's what Donald Trump likes to do. He likes to fight with people. He likes to divide and conquer. That's sort of how he's won the two elections that he has won. It's his management style. And keep in mind, what is the administration on the other side of the coin? So we've already talked about Tim Walz and how he's handling this. What is the administration doing? Despite Kristi Noem's excellent press conference today, what was her message? That this was domestic terrorism. Not ICE, by the way, but the protester who was shot to death was engaged in domestic terrorism. I'm not sure that's going to be a very easy thing to sell to the American people. In Charlottesville, when the guy drove his car into a crowd of people trying to kill people, that's domestic terrorism. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that's domestic terrorism. I'm not sure an ordinary American would watch these videos and say that this was domestic terrorism. Yes, the woman apparently hit an ICE agent with her car as she was apparently trying to get away. And it seems like at first blush so far that the agent was legally justified in what he did. That being said, I don't think it's going to rise to the level where most people think the woman was engaged in domestic terrorism against federal agents as part of this. So it's the administration is walking a sort of a fine line as well at the same time.
Mick Mulvaney, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for walking us through it. This is an absolutely fascinating and, as you say, really explosive situation. Mick Mulvaney, thanks so much.
Thanks, James.